Hello everyone, China Miss Jones here. I am making a copy of my live stream this morning. We are talking flat earth. We have a pastor who is holding a sermon speaking of the scriptures in the Bible that refer to a stationary flat plane. It's very enlightening. Kind of boring at first, but the chat gets really good. It's fantastic. Just watch. Thanks. Love and light. Take care.
These are actual depictions from NASA of...
One more word of advice to you, Andy.
I'm sorry, hold on just a moment.
Start buying t-shirts.
Because the sun and the moon and the stars have their own glory, the light. But the firmament is showing his handiwork. That's him creating something over the heaven.
I have to stop and say congratulations, Andy. Andy has said in the chat that he is officially a flat earther now, by the way. Converted last week. I'm out of the closet now. Can you believe it? Yes, I can believe it. But coming out the closet is where the battle truly begins. The only advice I can give to you as a true flat earther, only for the past 6 months maybe, is keep your beliefs to yourself. Hi, Soulful Freedom. Keep your beliefs to yourself. Sit around. Be that one that sits in the corner and doesn't say anything to anybody about anything. I wouldn't even talk to your best friend until they're ready. Let people start asking questions first. Therefore, your battle is already won. Because if you're confident in yourself, Andy, and you know that day that you converted, you knew it then. There's no argument to be discussed. And another way I talk to people is I just bring up certain things. I don't necessarily say, hey, I'm a flat earther. You want to talk about it? I just bring up general things and start the conversation, but I no longer argue. So your battle has just begun. But congratulations, Andy. Welcome to the flat earth community.
The firmament. That's what that is. So now let's go into Revelation chapter 6. And I'm going to show you that the earth is flat according to scripture, not a spinning ball. But before we do that, turn to Revelation chapter 6. I want you to go back to your packet. Look in your packet. We're going to look at number 3, the third page. Look in your packet to page number 3. These are actual depictions from NASA of...
One more word of advice to you, Andy. Start buying t-shirts and things like flat earth t-shirts just to bring up conversations, not to fight about it. But now that you're out of the closet, your battle truly begins, because you don't know what to say, when to say around family or friends or how they feel. I would just sit back and listen just to avoid the arguments. But welcome to flat earth once again.
What the earth has looked like over the years. These are literally from NASA, released to the public. Look in 1975. See that big massive thing of clouds, but then you can see a little bit of continent under it. Look at 1997. You see the size all the way to the right. You see the size of that continent. 1997, the size. But then look at 2012. Right here, right in the third row over in the bottom. Look how big that continent got. The Earth's the same size. But that continent grew a lot, didn't it? It grew a lot over the course of the years, right? But then look at 2002, a completely new size. You have the right here. This is where the United States would be. And then 2015, you can't even really see a continent. And then 2007, you're almost able to see every continent in the one picture. So their pictures are changing from year to year. They're never the same. They never look the same. They never match along the earth doesn't look the same. Look at the colors don't match. The sizes never match. The earth is always the same size, but everything in it is just a mess. Because God's allowing them to just mess up, do strong delusion. Everybody just believes it. They flat out just believe it. And turn to Revelation chapter 6. And they never show any stars in the background. I want you to always keep that in mind. There's never any stars behind the earth. There's never any stars behind the moon. Because they always forget to put them in there. But they say there's infinite amount of stars in the universe. And if there was an infinite amount of stars in the universe, you would only see light when you looked up. You would only see light when you looked up. No matter how long it takes the light to get here, the light's already here. They're saying our universe is, remind you, you have to believe in the Big Bang Theory to believe this is true, because the light is coming from millions of light years in the past. So when you're seeing this light, according to them, it was millions of years ago that you saw that. Well, that is coming now. That sun could be exploded by now. That sun could be gone. But you're seeing the light coming from it. And they say there's an infinite, I'll go over the exact numbers, but they say there's almost an infinite amount of stars in the universe. And if that was true, you would see nothing but light everywhere. There would be no spot, there would be no light. But there's only, and when you look, it's funny, if you do like a time lapse of the stars, you always see the same exact stars. But if you're traveling through space at 515,000 miles an hour,
right,
around the sun at 1,000 miles an hour, why are you seeing the same stars every single year at the same exact time? It doesn't make any sense.
Why don't people ask that more often?
So in Revelation chapter 6, look in verse 14, it says, "And the heaven departed as a scroll, when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said unto the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb." So what did it just say? Departed as a scroll when rolled together, the heavens. Remember, the heavens are the firmament. So once the firmament is departed as a scroll rolled together, not, the spinning ball earth, where it doesn't matter where it departs, only half the earth is going to see him. But when those heavens depart as a scroll, every eye sees him. Every bondman, every free man sees him, and they see his throne. So that means both firmaments were rolled apart. Because remember, there's still a firmament under his throne. So the heavens departed as a scroll, as it is rolled together. The firmament opens. And obviously when the firmament opens and the other firmament opens, you can see God, because he's right above you. He's not like some weird generation away. He's not in some multi-universe. Why would God create a tiny little earth and make you one of a billion? Everything he does has purpose. The sun has a purpose. The moon has a purpose. Stars have purposes. Why make millions of galaxies and make you nothing? The earth is the smallest. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. They want you to believe a lie so that you don't believe in God. Do you know how many more people believe in God if you knew you lived on a flat earth and that you knew God was right above you? Literally right above you. There's a firmament on top of the earth. Above that are the waters that divided. And then above that is God's throne. God's right there. That's why when we get to the circle of the earth and he's looking down upon us like grasshoppers, is because he literally is. And he's right there. And he can take a lot more account of us if he's right above us. Turn to Revelation chapter 1 and verse 7. Revelation 1, verse 7. Some people say, oh, every eye's going to see him because we all have TV. No, there's plenty of hoarders out in nowhere's land that have no TV, no anything. Every eye will see him. Revelation chapter 1, behold, in verse 7, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. Every eye. And they also which pierced him, and all the kindred of the earth shall wail because of him, even so. Amen. On the ball earth, if he's coming with the clouds, you better time that correctly, because that earth is spinning real quick. And only a quarter of the earth is really going to see him. Honestly, if it's a ball earth and you're spinning, not every eye is going to see him. But every eye will see him when the heavens depart, and he comes straight down. And it'll be there. Turn to Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4, verse 11. Daniel chapter 4, verse 11. Daniel 4, verse 11. So in Daniel chapter 4, it's talking about a tree, and it says, the tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven. So the height is reaching above the clouds unto heaven. It's going very high up. And then it says, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. So we'll go over the fact that the earth actually does have ends, and that it's not a ball, it is actually all held in together. But it's showing there that if something is tall enough or high enough, you can see it from every end of the earth. If there's a tree large enough, obviously the base would have to be very, very wide to make it all the way to heaven. And God's word is saying the sight thereof, and the sight thereof to the end of the earth, every eye can see it. In the same way that every eye will be able to see the glory of Jesus when he comes down. It's going to be literal. Everything in the Bible, assume it's literal unless it's, it has to be metaphorical. Turn to Genesis chapter 11. Oh, I'm going to read a verse from you from Matthew chapter 8, but you turn to Matthew chapter 4. And it's in Matthew 4, verse 8, again the devil taketh him up to an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. So some people say, well, obviously it's a miracle because, you can't see all the kingdoms of the earth. But why would it say an exceeding high mountain? And why would it say showing him all the kingdoms of the earth? Because the mountain has to be extremely high if you can see across a flat earth all the kingdoms of the earth and the glory of them. So you have, even on a very, very clear day, on a very, very high mountain, you could see a lot of land. You could see all the kingdoms at that time. And I believe there's a reason it says an exceeding high mountain. It would have just said he just took him up and he saw everything. There's a reason he brought him to an exceeding high mountain to show him all the kingdoms of the earth. So you're in Genesis chapter 11, look in verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. We'll get into the face of the earth and how that actually means a literal face of the earth. And how God only uses the word face describing flat surfaces. But face of the earth. And it says in verse 6, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one, they have all of one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So if this was a foolish task, if this was something stupid, and if this was unaccomplishable on a spinning ball earth, then God wouldn't have came down. God wouldn't have made it a problem. And some people will say, people in the Old Testament always believed that the earth was a sphere. They say that to make their theory seem more clear. But if they think the earth is a sphere, why would they try and build a tower unto heaven?
Exactly.
Where are they trying to go? What are they trying to do? They want to go unto heaven. And they said that whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered. So they knew that they could build up. They knew that something was above them. And they knew, because pretty much everybody knew until the 1600s, until the last 500 years or so, that the earth was flat. It's just more recently where they could easily plague us from the newspapers, from movies and TVs, that everybody just believes a lie from birth. What's the first thing you've seen when you walk into any school, anything, anywhere, even churches today? A big globe. That's the first thing. It's on pretty much, even half the pastors in this movement have a big globe as their background. They don't even realize they're perpetuating a lie. You might as well just show the evolution of monkeys to man all the way down the whole way, because you're just pushing a lie. And it's not in Scripture. So turn to Genesis chapter 1.
It's not in the Scripture.
And verse 9. I'm going to show you that the sun, moon, and stars are within the firmament. We are not spinning around them. We are not, just hurtling through space and they're everywhere. No, they're all within the firmament. Look in verse 9, it said, God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place. Remind you, there was waters below the heaven and above the heaven. Be gathered into one place and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth.
I have to stop it and let's read Andy's comment, because Andy says the earth is still round. We live in the third dimension as humans. we pass away, our souls enter into the fourth dimension, which I can believe Earth is a flat, eternal, never-ending plane of existence. Well, I'm going to sit on that one for a minute before I answer you. But you know, I don't agree. You got me thinking though, Andy.
And then the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So when your Earth is spinning continually and you're seeing the same exact stars, then I don't know how that's possible in their theory. The reason that God created stars and the sun and the moon was for signs and for seasons. And, you know, the sun was given to give heat on the earth, and the moon was given for a light by night. Look at verse 15. He said, let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights. So the moon is a great light. Right. People assume, who's heard that the landing on the moon was fake? Has anybody heard that? Most people actually believe that, but they still believe in the sphere Earth. The reason the moon landing was faked is because you can't land on a light. It's not possible. That's why, turn to page number 4 in your packet. Page number 4 in your packet is a picture of, turn to page number, wait for it, 6. Page number 6, there should be numbers on it. You see the blue sky? You see the moon? This is the page you're trying to look for. See the blue sky, and then you see the moon? If the moon had a shade on it, that would be black.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to see blue sky behind it. That's a fake when they show you the moon in space. This is what the moon really looks like. It's a light. It's not something you can land on. That's why you can see through it, because it's a light, and God has given it to have different seasons. So, you know, when he calls it a new moon, he means the light is fully shining.
Right.
But when it's lesser moons, it's not shining as much. That's why you can see blue sky behind the moon, because it's in the firmament. It's in the sky. It's within our own enclosed system. If this was the shade of the sun, this would have to be black, because that's what a shadow is. Black. So you're in Genesis chapter 1. It says he created two great lights. The greater light, the sun, to rule the day. The lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
And that just hit me. He didn't say he created spheres or planets or anything that we're supposed to travel to. I like this pastor. I like him.
And God set them in the firmament. I don't know how many times he can say it, but he said it at least 3 times so far. In the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. So reasons for the sun and the moon to give light upon the earth. And to rule, and in verse 18 it says, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Turn to Mark chapter 13. I'm going to prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that the moon is a light and not a terrestrial plane that you can land on. Because mind you, when it was land, God called it earth. He would have said a light and an earth. Because when it was land, he called it earth. But he's calling it a light. Look in Mark chapter 13 and verse 24. And it says, in those days, after the tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. The moon's own light. If the moon was giving the light from the sun, it would be the sun's light. It's her own light. Open up to page number 5 in your package.
Welcome, Mayor. And also, how does the sun light the moon up again when it's completely down? I hope he answers this.
This is a literal picture from NASA that they released to the public. And in their fake CGI imaging right here, you can see that they're taking this picture from behind their false moon and their false world. And the sun is shining on the Earth, but it forgot to shine on the moon. It forgot right here. There's no sun here. There's no light here. This was released to the public.
Hold on.
There would be light here if the sun was behind it. This should be illuminated. It's dark.
I've just got to go back in just a couple of seconds. What do you say?
They released to the public. And in their fake CGI imaging right here, you can see that they're taking this picture from behind their false moon and their false world. And the sun is shining on the Earth, but it forgot to shine on the moon. It forgot right here. There's no sun here. There's no light here. This was released to the public. There would be light here if the sun was behind it. This should be illuminated. It's darkened because it's fake. And the moon's a light. So turn to Revelation chapter 21. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 23. Revelation 21:23 reads, "And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it. For the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof." So why would it mention the moon as a light if it wasn't giving it off its own light? You wouldn't need that extra wording there. It doesn't make sense. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. In verse 41, we're going to look at verse 41. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 41, it says, "There is one glory of the sun." It's talking about the light shining from it. It's talking about the light given off of it. And that's why it describes the glory of God. It's talking about light. There's one glory of the sun and another glory of the moon. Moon, own light, another glory. Not the same glory. And then it says also, and another glory of the stars. So the stars also have their own light. For one star different from another star in glory. So different brightnesses, different lights. Ezekiel chapter 32. And mind you, if the moon is a light and not a plane, everything you've ever been told is a lie. Everything you've ever been told is a lie, because the moon can't have gravity if it's a lesser light. And actually the moon and the sun are the same size.
Yep.
Why would they look the same exact size and be exactly the perfect distance away from each other to look the exact same size? If the sun is billions of times bigger than the Earth, or however many times bigger, and it would have to be the perfect distance away, and the moon would have to be the perfect distance away for them to be the same exact size. It doesn't make sense. They're the same size. One's just a light for night and the other's a light for day. They're in the firmament. Turn to Ezekiel chapter 32, verse 7. Verse 7 says, "When I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark, and I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and I shall set darkness upon the land."
Okay.
So the reason
he just said, "And the moon shall not give her light." That's self-explanatory to me. Her light. It doesn't say that the moon won't reflect from the sun's light. It specifically says her light as an individual or something, one of its lights. You get what I'm saying? It didn't say that the sun would not be showing its reflection on the moon.
he says it will be dark is because the moon will not give her light. The moon is a light. Jeremiah, I'm just going to beat this right into the ground. Jeremiah 31, verse 35. I actually had to cut out about 40 more verses of this just because it was too repetitive, but I really need to show you this. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35. Jeremiah 31, verse 35. I'm going to let you all get there. Jeremiah 31, verse 35 reads, "Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances, keep in mind, ordinances is like a setting of something, you know, you set ordinances. So the ordinance of the sun and the moon would be the rotation thereof. And it says the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night. So the moon is a light, and the stars are a light for night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. And then Isaiah 13. Turn to Isaiah 13. This is the last verse we'll go over. With the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 10, it reads, For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. The moon's light, her light. The moon gives off its own light, and it is not a plane you can land on. That's why the moon landing was a fake. And that's why the guy looked like a nut job when he was trying to explain how he landed on the moon, because you can't land on a light. It's just not possible. It doesn't make sense. Turn to Genesis chapter 2.
He needs a gallon of water.
Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2 verse 1 reads, Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. So all the hosts of them, if you believe in the globe model, would include the universe. So it's done, right? But if you believe the earth is a globe spinning through space, it's not done. You have to believe that the universe is ever expanding. That's why it's spinning through space. That's why our galaxy is constantly, according to science, traveling through space, because it's expanding into nothing. But God says, we're finished. Everything's finished. Everything's done. There's no more creating happening. There's no more expanse happening. It's done. The heavens and the earth are finished, and it's an enclosed system. And it's all right here. And science will also tell you that they know the radius of the earth, right? Because you need to know the radius to calculate the curvature. So they...
Andy says moon landing was a fake. He'd agree. I hope you agree. I hope everybody agrees, because just the thing that they went up there in is hideous. If you ever really look at it, it looks like sticks in aluminum foil. How did that ever make it there? And telltale sign. There's so many telltale signs, but my favorite sign is who filmed it leaving. Who filmed that aluminum foil object leaving the moon? The damn boot prints didn't even match. I said I wasn't going to talk a whole lot, but here we go.
They know the radius of the earth. They know how wide the earth is in their sphere model. Turn to Job chapter 38. Job chapter 38. I'm going to prove to you that you can't find out the radius of the earth because it's a flat earth.
Yes, Jamie, yes.
And God says you can't find it out, and I believe him. Job 38, verse 4. It says, Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare if thou knowest it all. So God is saying you can't find the radius of the earth. You won't find out the radius of the earth, because we're not trying to measure a radius. Mind you, it's not a sphere. And I'm sure maybe we could measure from endpoint to endpoint, but they're not going to let us do that because, you know, they all are pushing this globe theory, but that's still not the radius up and down. You know, we'll never find that out. We'll never know that. And it says, who has stretched a line upon it? I'll go into that more, but a line is a unit of measurement, or a way of measuring a straight, flat, fixed plane. You don't use a line. I'll prove that to you from the Bible, that you don't use a line to measure something that's curved. You don't use a line to measure something that is curved. Turn to 1 Timothy chapter 6. Turn to Isaiah chapter 44. I'll read this verse for you. Isaiah chapter 44, verse 13. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20, Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoid profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. So if science is going against Scripture, we need to go against science. But actually, the real science proves the earth is flat. Real science proves that the earth is flat. And I mean, I know for sure, I started realizing this when I used to live at home in Mattatuck. So I used to live in a place called Mattatuck, which is at the tip of Long Island. And if you looked across on a clear day, I can see the shore of Connecticut. And
I'm going to add some mods, especially you, Jamie, at the end. I tried to do it just then, but I didn't want to mess up.
The shore of Connecticut is about 17 miles away. And I started to question, because I was a physics major when I went to college for my first year. And I started to question the curvature. And I know I heard, all from the media, it's just a mirage. But too bad mirages are upside down. And they're supposed to be inverted. So you can't say that.
I like what you just said, Jamie. Natural science proves we are not on a spinning globe. Natural science. I haven't heard that term in years. You're absolutely 100% correct. But this generation does not even believe that natural science even exists. They only believe what scientists tell them.
That something's a mirage from the curvature. So I started to question it. And I did the math. I found out, I said, 17 miles away, mind you, the earth is supposed to curve 8 inches per mile squared. So 17 miles squared times 8 inches divided by 12, it's about 192 feet of curvature you're supposed to see. So I shouldn't be able to see the shore, let alone any buildings in Connecticut. But it was clear as day. Even with and then just get binoculars, then it's even more clear. It's easy that you're just looking at a flat surface. Who saw that picture of Chicago, I think it was, on the news, where they showed Chicago from almost 40 miles away? And the news was trying to explain it like, oh, you're seeing a mirage. Mirages are inverted. Chicago would have been upside down. You were actually seeing, they were proving that the earth is flat. Because 40 miles away is a very, very long distance, and the earth should have curved. I didn't do the math for this one, but at least 400 feet, maybe 600 feet. Probably more than that. I didn't even do the math yet. But it's just a big lie. It's always been a lie. And some people will say, well, what about sailboats? When you see a sailboat going, that sailboat, it drops, right? No, it doesn't. Get binoculars. You'll just see the bottom of it right there. But I'll just prove to you why that happens. So when you're looking at something, picture you're looking down a hallway. You ever see a hallway? You know that every single border is the same, right? It's equidistant this way and equidistant this way. What happens to your vision as it goes farther away? It looks like the top is coming down, right? It looks like the top is getting lower. But it's not getting lower. It's the same height. If you walked all the way over there, it would be the same height. But all the converging lines come to your field of vision. So when you see a sailboat or a boat going away from you, it looks like it's getting lower. It looks like the top is dipping down. But what's actually happening is that all your converging lines of your vision are coming together. And if you would just take a camera that can zoom or binoculars that can see farther, you could be able to see the bottom of that boat. There was no dip. There was no...
And you know what, you guys, that is a great, fantastic test for anyone to do. For anyone who still has doubts, all Globers, all whoever. I used to be where you are. But if you actually live near a beach, lake, something that you can look at and actually see boats or whatever disappear out of your vision, from your peripheral vision, from your tunnel vision, that is, just have you a telescope or some binoculars and it will zoom right back in. If that is not proof enough, I mean, that's hands-on, hands-down proof.
Curvature. There was nothing. It's just the field of your vision. That's why when you look at a hallway, all 4 sides are coming together in the top of your vision. It's just the way your mind processes things. It has nothing to do with the fact that something's curving, because people online, you can just go look. People just zoom in, like they'll see a boat, you'll be like, oh, it's gone. And then they just use their camera and just zoom in a little bit. And it's like, oh, it's right there. It's still right there. Because it's so simple. It's just easy to prove that the earth is flat. It's so easy to prove that the earth is flat. You're in Isaiah chapter 44, look in verse 13. It says, the carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He fitteth it with planes. So remember, we were talking about a line, how to measure with a line. Well, when you're stretching out your rule and you're fitting it with a plane is a flat surface. So when God was talking about measuring the earth with a line, he was measuring a flat surface. And what does he use to measure a curved surface? What would God call that? Look in the next verse. It says, and he marketh it out with a compass, and he marketh out the figure of a man. So to mark with a compass, that's what God would use to measure curvature. But he's just measuring it with a line. That's why we went over that verse before. And in Joshua chapter 6, you don't have to turn there, it says, verse 3, and ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war. So when they were circling the city, God would describe the earth as compass if it was round. But every time he describes measuring the earth, he describes it by stretching a line upon it, because it's flat and it's not round. Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 37 says, thus saith the Lord, if the heaven above can be measured and the foundations of the earth stretched out beneath, I will also cast out all of the seed of Israel. So the science saying, I know the radius of the earth, God is saying you can't measure that. God is telling you, you can never measure how high heaven is. You will never be able to figure that out. But science tells us we can, because they're lying. If God says we can't measure it, then we can't. And it says in Proverbs 25:3, the heaven for height, the earth for depth, and the heart of kings is unsearchable. So you'll never know how far the firmament is up, and you'll never know how deep hell is below us. Because you know how everybody says, and the Bible teaches that hell is below us. But isn't that such a finite place for hell? You know, you got billions of souls going to hell. And if you believe the earth is a globe, you only got so much space to put all those souls. We got to think of stuff more literally as a church, you know. If there's nothing under us, if it's an enclosed system and hell is beneath, God's got a lot of space to put hell. He's got a lot of space for all those souls. And then you're going to turn to Ezekiel chapter 40. Ezekiel chapter 40. So in Ezekiel chapter 40 and verse 5, it says, and behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long, 6 cubits long, by the cubit and a handbreadth, so to measure the breadth of the building, 1 reed, and the height thereof. And then turn to Ezekiel chapter 45. So,
okay, excuse me. Andy, I am a Christian, but I'm sorry. That's one thing that our New Testament totally drops the ball. Denying and defying science and mathematics. New Testament. Why is there even a New Testament? Why wasn't when the Bible was either chiseled, written, however it was at first on tablets, or why does there have to be a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth editions? And why were some taken out, like the Book of Enoch? I think that's what I'll do on my next live stream. Hell, I might do it after this because I'm not tired. The Book of Enoch. Why was that taken out? Once you read it, I'm like 4 or 5 times now. I'm still reading it. You will understand why it was taken out, because it's nothing but truth. But just like you said, New Testaments. How is there a New Testament? What happened new in the old Bible that they had to write a new one? I understand that some Bibles have been written for people such as myself who are, illiterate in some ways and just don't get the certain words like thee, thou, and such. I understand that the Bible was rewritten for us to understand it these days. but I don't understand why it was rewritten like 15, 16 times, and why there's 15, 16 different Bibles, and why some things were taken out.
The measuring reed is 6 cubits long. One reed is 6 cubits.
Welcome.
Just going to use some science here real quick. One reed is 6 cubits. Turn to Ezekiel chapter 45, look in verse 1. It says, moreover, when ye shall divide by lot the land for inheritance, ye shall offer an oblation unto the Lord, a holy portion of the land. The length shall be the length of 5 and 20,000 reeds. So he's using 25,000 reeds to measure the length of land. But a reed is a straight object. A reed you would use to measure something flat. And 6 cubits is the length of a reed. Times that by 25,000 reeds, that's 225,000 feet, which is 42.6 miles that they're measuring. With the formula for the curvature of the earth would have dropped 1,200 feet by then. You wouldn't use a reed to measure 1,200 feet of curvature. And you didn't account for that in any of his measurements, because you have to account for curvature when you're actually measuring out distances. That's why you can talk to anybody that, lays.
Okay, I'm going back to the chat. And it says, did you know, where'd you go? Did you know there's not such a place called hell, Satan, Lucifer, until Constantine created the Christian church? I did not know that, but people have been saying go to hell for a very, 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 very long time. So, I don't know. I know hell used to be called something else other than hell. I think it had an S in front of it or something, but no, I didn't know that. And Grandpa 2012, hi. I see you and Jamie are having a discussion here. We all keep it nice and neat up in here. Jamie should have a wrench. He is a mod, but I just don't have one in front of him yet. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Okay. Grandpa says, Jamie, well, for you to see 100 miles side to side, you would need to be able to see the distance away from you of about 50 miles, which isn't impossible, but would be pretty rare thing. Okay. Jamie says, dream on. Simple math, mate, work it out. Where are you from, Grandpa 2012? You want me to tell you how I reached that number? Or you don't care? You probably don't care, but well, just like see what all living in the sea here. Exactly, Mayor. You see what I know what I'm talking about. Oh, just I was just wondering where you're from because you use the term mate. I like that. Be nice to Jamie. We all have our differences, but one thing about us is we're all human. We can all make it happen because we were all Globers at one point. That's something we all do have in common. We were all Globers at one point. We had to crawl before we walked. Be nice to each other. I know you're being nice. Believe me, I've had worse chats, but if Jamie, if you could explain, then do so. Back to the movie and popcorn.
Track for trains. They never account for curvature because it doesn't exist. There's no curvature in the earth. They only count for, going up and down hills. There's no curvature. There's actually, if you actually do the math, there should be a lot of curvature when you're doing 40 miles, 15 miles, hundreds of miles. You're not buying more track for hundreds of miles when you should be, if there's a lot of curvature. And in my next sermon, because mind you, this is a two-parter, I got to put this to bed. My next sermon, this is the end of this one, I'm going to cover the earth as a circle, not a sphere. The earth is fixed and not rotating. The earth is a flat surface, though we kind of touched on it here. The earth has ends, which I'll go over, and the sun moves, not the earth. And I have verses that prove that without a doubt. And I'll just close this in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for all the people you have brought here today, Lord. I pray that they will see your truth in your word. I pray that we will stop believing lies that science falsely so called, and I pray that you will work in the hearts of everybody that hears this sermon to believe your word as truth, and we thank you so much. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Part 2 is coming up.
Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention in my last sermon was I want you to turn to Genesis chapter 1. Look in verse 9.
And mind you, I like the way he did not feel the need to close his eyes when he prayed. Did you see that? A lot of people, close their eyes, put their hands together. I don't feel that necessary, nor did I ever feel it necessary to get on my knees beside my bed, before bed, and say prayer. I said it when I got in bed, got covered up and comfortable. I like how he didn't have to shut his eyes. We should not have to shut our eyes to pray.
9. It says, God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So this is earth being created. And God called the dry land earth. You see that? It says dry land earth. And the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons. So what was created first? It was the earth. The earth was created first, and then he created the lights, the stars, the sun. And it says, let them be for signs and for seasons and for years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And God made 2 great lights. So he didn't even create the sun and the moon yet. So now he's creating the sun and the moon, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth and to rule over the day and over the night. And God saw that it was good. So what happened first was, on the second day, God created the firmament. And then the third day, God created earth under the firmament, in the firmament. And then the fourth day, God creates the sun and the moon. So what was the earth rotating around before God created it?
And where the hell does all that fit into the Big Bang Theory? I mean, these people who believe in the Big Bang Theory, have they read this book? Do they believe in the book and the Big Bang? You cannot believe in this book and believe in the Big Bang. It's just, if so, you're misreading the book. Clearly, something's wrong.
What was the earth rotating around before God created the sun? It wasn't rotating around anything, because he created the earth first. Created the earth, the firmament, and then he put the lights in it. And I just wanted to show you that before we get into the circle of the earth. So you just have a general idea that God created the earth first, and then the sun and the moon. It just wouldn't make sense. Why wouldn't he create the sun first, and then the earth, and have the earth spin around the sun? It makes more sense that he created the earth first, and then the sun spinning around the earth. So let's get into the circle of the earth. All right, so I hope you still have your packet. If not, grab your packet from below you. And if you're watching this online, you haven't seen part number 1, it's important to watch part number 1 and get the foundation to the message. So we're going to start in Isaiah chapter 40. And if you have your packet with you, we're going to look at Isaiah 40 next to verse 22. I want you to put your packet next to your Bible. And on the first page of your packet, it goes over something in verse 22. In Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 22, it goes over something very specific. And it says in verse 22, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, talking about God, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So look at your packet. This is the flat earth model of the universe. Well, I don't like to call it a universe because it's an enclosed system. So the flat earth model of the world. This is the circle. If God is sitting upon the circle of the earth, he's sitting up here. Remember, we talked about God being above the firmament. He's sitting upon the circle of the earth and looking down, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, looking down at the circle, us as grasshoppers. We're as grasshoppers to him. On the spinning ball earth, he's looking down and things are just spinning in front of his face. Things are just going everywhere. And things are more relative and literal in the Bible. He is literally looking down upon us. And it says, he that stretches...
My bad, I'm going back to the chat here. And Andy, the pastor's favorite movie must be The Truman Show. Everything fake, and they lie, nothing is real. Andy, that's reality. The Truman Show is reality. We live in a false reality. You're funny. Do you believe that everything is the truth around us, Andy? I mean, do you believe that everything ever been told to us is the truth? Yeah, but we're still paying for electricity.
Stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So when you think of a tent, what do you think of? Something that's on a flat surface that is casing over it. It is over the earth. This is a tent. The heavens are as a tent, and it says to dwell in. Because he's talking about stretching out the heavens and spreading them as a tent to dwell in. We are dwelling in that tent. That tent is this firmament, and everything is within this enclosed system. It is all within here, and we are sitting within. And a tent is something you would use on a flat surface.
Right.
They use that terminology. God uses this terminology for a good reason. You wouldn't put a tent on a ball. You would wrap a blanket around a ball, or you would do something else around a ball. A tent is something that you set pillars and you establish it, and then everything else is within it. So turn to Isaiah chapter 13. So I just wanted to go over why the earth is a circle, not a sphere, because some people will use that verse that he sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and they'll say, see, that's a word, that's sphere. That's a sphere. Or in Hebrew, circle means sphere. You know, they just want to go back. They want to go back to the Hebrew and just say, no, it's just a circle, and this is a circle. This is the circle of the earth. It's a flat disc, and he's looking down upon it. But it's not a sphere, it's a circle. And then if you're in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 13, I want to show you that the earth is in a fixed position. It is not rotating around the sun. It is not spinning through the galaxy. It is not being just propelled into nothingness. It's in a fixed position. Look in verse 13 of Isaiah 13. It says, therefore, I will shake the heavens. In order to shake something, it's usually stationary, right? I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts and in the day of his...
Right, he didn't say... I just got that. He didn't say he would shake the earth or Gaia or this planet. Wow, I will shake the heavens. Huh. Great. Love this guy.
Fierce anger. So her place is showing that the earth has a place, a position, a space, that it is set. In the rotating earth, where it's just going everywhere, and it's going through space, and it's traveling around the sun, which is traveling around the galaxy, there's no fixed place for earth. But this is in a fixed place. Turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 16. 1 Chronicles chapter 16. I'm just going to go through a bunch of verses that show that the earth is in a fixed position, and it is stationary and not rotating or spinning. 1 Chronicles chapter 16 and verse 30, it says, fear before him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. So the world is stable, it's established, and it's not going to be moved. Turn to Psalm chapter 33. Psalm chapter 33, I want you to look in verse 8. Psalm 33 and verse 8, it says, let all the earth fear the Lord. Let the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. So he's talking about the inhabitants of the world, and he's saying he spake, and it was done. Everything was created. And he commanded, and it stood fast. When something is staying, it stood, it's in one place. And when it's fastened. It's staying in that one place. Turn to Psalm 93, which we just read. Psalm 93, which we just read, in verse 1. It says, "The Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he had girded himself. The world also is established
correct, Mayor.
that it cannot be moved." So it's describing the strength of the Lord. It's describing that he is clothed with majesty and clothed with strength, which wherewith he had girded himself. And he's talking about something the Lord created, the world, also established, and it cannot be moved. It's in one fixed place. It's not rotating or spinning. Turn to Psalm 104, verse 5. Psalm 104 in verse 5. Verse 5 reads, "Who laid the foundation of the earth that it should not be removed forever?" So the foundation of the earth is, when you think of foundation, you got to think of what it is built upon. The earth itself. So the foundation of the earth, what the earth is mounted upon. Obviously, we're going to go over the verse where it's mounted upon nothing, where the earth hangeth upon nothing. But the foundation of the earth is not going to be removed. I don't always use this verse because, some people say that just, the earth itself is not going to be removed. But when you're talking about the foundation.
All right. Mayor says, disowning people from the lands in the name of preserving nature, as she just stated. In those liberated African countries, the people still didn't want land from the landowner. Same here, as we push into cities with buildings stop. So no construction without demolition. Absolutely correct. I agree with you. Just like Christopher Columbus, right? He discovered America. But when he got there, he named his slave Friday. What does that tell you? Think about that one.
Of the earth, the place and where it is standing, that it should not be removed forever, because it's immovable and it cannot be removed forever. Turn to Isaiah chapter 45. Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 18. It says in verse 18 in Isaiah 45, it says, "Thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain, for he formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else." So in this verse, what does it say? It says that he created the earth not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. And he's saying he's the Lord. He made it. God himself formed the earth and he made it. He formed it not in vain. So if he formed the earth not in vain and it was made to be inhabited, the earth has a purpose. It was made to be inhabited by us. The sun has a purpose. It is made to give light upon the earth. The moon has a purpose. It is made to give light upon the earth when the sun is not, where it's not with the sun, because mind you, they're spinning in the same direction around the earth. So everything God created has a purpose. He formed the earth for a reason, for it to be inhabited. Why would he create a vast expanse of billions of galaxies, billions of other planets, billions of other stars, if they have no purpose? Because they don't have a purpose. They have no purpose if you believe that there's billions of other galaxies, billions of other stars, billions of other planets. Those things were created by science to deceive you, to make it seem like there could be other life out there. To make it seem like God did not make us personal, but he formed the earth for a reason, so it would be inhabited by us as people, so we could inhabit it. Nothing is vainly created. He said he created it not in vain. Vain, it just means vanity. So if something's created in vain, it doesn't have a purpose. It's useless. In the same way that other planets, other galaxies, other stars in millions of light years away, they're useless. They're vanity. They're created in vain for no reason. The earth, the flat earth system, everything in our system has a purpose. The sea has purpose. The land has purpose. The firmament itself has purpose. The sun and the moon and the stars within it. have purpose. Other galaxies are they would be vanity. They would be created in vain. There's no purpose to them. Turn to Job chapter 9.
I don't know how much I agree with him there, you guys. But I do wonder if there are other Earth-like planets or Earth-like planes. Do they read the same Bible? I'm just curious. Do they also have a Bible that runs their system? Interesting question, I think.
So I'm going to go over a couple verses that talk about the earth being on pillars, but this is more of, I guess, a theory that God puts forth about the earth being on pillars. You know, I don't have science to back this up, just in the same way I don't have science to back up that there's a firmament in heaven. We're trusting the Bible here. So in Job chapter 9 and verse 6, it says, which shaketh the earth out of her place. So it's talking about God shaking the earth out of her place, you know, her stationary place that God has established for it. And the pillars thereof tremble. So the Bible does talk about the earth on pillars. And the pillars necessarily don't have to have a foundation. Because some people will say, well, if the earth has pillars, then what about the Lord? What about the earth being hung on nothing? The earth hangeth upon nothing. We'll go over that. But just because the earth has pillars, or if God describes it, you know, the foundation, doesn't mean it's those pillars are on anything. So the earth can still be hung upon nothing. And the pillars thereof can be also theoretical in the sense that this is the Lord holding the earth up. So turn to 1 Samuel chapter 2. 1 Samuel chapter 2. I'm going to talk about these pillars a little more. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 8. It says, he raiseth up the poor, 1 Samuel 2 and verse 8. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifted up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. So the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the earth upon them. So, you know, this could put forth the theory that there are pillars holding the earth, pillars holding this flat earth up, and the Lord has established them. But what are those pillars on? They're on the strength of God. God is holding up everything. God is the one that is holding up the earth. God is the reason that this earth is unmovable. And
that's where I have to question. Why would you need pillars if you could create such a beautiful, wonderful, habitable, flat plain? Why would there be pillars? I've often wondered that. I know that elephants and turtles are involved. It's like 4 elephants sitting on a turtle's shell. I don't know. This video is just bringing up a lot of questions for me. Why would God, Yahweh, create pillars to hold up a flat plane that he created? There has to be a reason behind it.
And stable. But the Lord is talking about the actual flat earth being hung upon pillars, which is also not possible on a globe earth, because, you know, you're constantly spinning. There's no stationary thing about it. And there would be no pillars. And in Psalm 75...
I know I keep cutting off the video, but the chat's getting pretty good. Why is everyone trying to reason in the mind of God? Grandpa 2012 asked. I'm assuming the answer is going to be because he's our creator. There's always a why, right? Where his mindset is, and you know that one question, why are we here? Why do we exist? I think it's to move on. I believe in reincarnation or recycling, however people want to call it these days. And I don't believe you get condemned to hell your first try. Wouldn't that be like irrelevant? Wouldn't that be a waste of a creator's time to create beings, knowing that the majority of them are going to fuck up? Excuse my language. The majority of them are going to mess up. They're going to send them straight down to hell. That's it. It's over. I don't believe that. I believe in reincarnation, and I question my surroundings every day. And the only person or only thing I can question is God. But we can't expect to understand the motivations creator in detail. Okay, you're correct about that. That's why we ask why. We can't expect to understand, but we can learn from it. And in hopes to understand, I'm still trying to, well, now I understand why they flipped the script and said that the earth was a globe after everyone knew it was flat. Jamie says recycling could be a trap to keep you being caught up in the loop of reincarnation. You're absolutely right. I've seen a couple of videos. I haven't watched them, but I've seen the titles, How to Escape the Matrix. I guess that's what they're talking about. But why wouldn't you want to be caught up in the loop of reincarnation if you haven't got it right yet? Like, getting it right is, what is getting it right? Is that we are going to serve eternally in heaven? With your whole entire family that hopefully has passed on, and they too have served enough reincarnations to be in heaven? I mean, what's the alternative? You know, I think it'd be really screwed up if you went to hell and your whole family went to heaven. This is why I question things, Grandpa 2012. I don't get much encouragement from life to believe in living God, to believe in a living God, but there is only one way. Mayor, I used to be like you. Still am a little, you know, but my encouragement, what gets me through life, is my children. Even though they're grown and, you know, doing their own things and they don't have time to call mom. And my leg's been broken since last November. I still can't walk. I've given up many, many times. But we have to be encouraged to keep moving on. Like, I think, what is my life worth now? I can't even walk. There's so many things I can't do without my leg. I mean, I still have it. Just 3 surgeries later, it still gets infected like it's infected now. But I have to keep going. And I guess within us all, there's a little place that it's nice to be able to mentally talk to God, Yahweh, the Creator. I'm getting some I was thinking about not doing this early in the morning, but you guys are asking some great questions. What pastor preachers they sermons to the scripture of the New Testament and don't even mention Jesus? Because we're not talking about Jesus, Andy. Furthermore, in that book, Jesus is only mentioned when he is born and when he's in his 30s. So how much is there to talk about Jesus? We're talking about flat earth here. We're talking about our Creator created something so phenomenal that works for us humans. That's what we're discussing, Andy. Of course, he hasn't brought up Jesus. Jesus wasn't even, the whole Bible was not about Jesus. Jesus Christ, y'all. All right, let's continue. But you guys are asking some really, really great questions, and this pastor is doing a great job, even though he hasn't brought up Yeshua. LOL.
You turn to Psalm 75. It's the Lord that is actually holding the earth. It is the Lord that's keeping the earth stationary. It's the Lord that has established the earth, and he created. Look in Psalm 75 in verse 3. It says, in verse 3 of Psalm 75, it says, the earth and all the inhabitants thereof are dissolved, I bear up the pillars of it. So it's talking about the Lord bearing the pillars of the earth. So the Lord holds the earth. He bears up the pillars. It is the Lord that is keeping the earth stationary. When you think of pillars, you think of something that's established. You think of something that is, you would use pillars to hold up a building. And a building is not something that's constantly in motion. You wouldn't use pillars to hold up a car. You wouldn't use pillars to hold up an airplane. You use pillars to hold up something that's established, something that's stationary. Turn to Job chapter 26, verse 7. Job chapter 26, verse 7. And in Job chapter 26, verse 7, it's talking about the Lord, and he says, he stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. So if you think of the north,
wait a minute, what did
as
you
the
say?
center of a flat earth, and he's stretching out the north over the empty place. It's the Lord that's keeping the earth stationary. It's the Lord that has established the earth, and he created. Look in Psalm 75 in verse 3. It says, in verse 3 of Psalm 75, it says, the earth and all the inhabitants thereof are dissolved. I bear up the pillars of it. So it's talking about the Lord bearing the pillars of the earth. So the Lord holds the earth. He bears up the pillars. It is the Lord that is keeping the earth stationary. When you think of pillars, you think of something that's established. You think of something that is, you would use pillars to hold up a building. And a building is not something that's constantly in motion. You wouldn't use pillars to hold up a car.
This is why I like this dude.
You wouldn't use pillars to hold up an airplane. You use pillars to hold up something that's established, something that's stationary.
You're almost
Turn to Job chapter 26.
Not that a mod is a big deal, but
Job chapter 26, verse 7.
Appreciate that.
And in Job chapter 26, verse 7, it's talking about the Lord, and he says, he stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. So if you think of the north as the center of a flat earth, and he's stretching out the north over the empty place, because it's a circle, and he's hanging the earth upon nothing. So those pillars, he's establishing them. He's holding the earth. He's keeping it fastened. And that is literally hung upon nothing. You can't say the pillars are hung upon something because it's the Lord that has established it. And he's stretching out the north over an empty place. Stretching out the north over an empty place. And hanging the earth upon nothing. But in the heliocentric model of the earth is hung upon the gravity of the sun. People say, oh, because it's spinning in space, it's hung upon nothing. But it actually, if it's tied to the gravity of the sun, it is hung upon the sun's gravity. And it is hung upon the weight or the mass of the sun. And it is not hung upon nothing because it according to science, it rotates the same distance every single year around the same exact thing, and is hung upon the gravity of the sun. So I just wanted to disprove that, some people will say, oh, the earth is a ball because it's not hung upon anything. But, if you believe in gravity and you believe that gravity is holding the earth, it is holding the earth in its rotation around the sun. But I believe that the Lord is holding up the earth, and he has established it. It is his to hold up, and he's hanging it upon nothing. He's hanging it upon nothing because it's established on his pillars.
Wow.
And usually he hangs something from the top, and he's hanging it upon nothing. He's holding it with his pillars. And it says in Job 38, verse 6.
What that takes me back to? Let me get back to the chat for a minute. That takes me back to, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world. Yeah, remember that song? No, I can't sing. But yeah. Where are we at in the chat over here? Thank you guys for saying a good show. I was thinking about not doing it, but my foot is in a lot of pain tonight. And I had some laundry to fold. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go live and let the people see what I see. Don't make you a martyr and get into a lot of trouble. Okay. Nature is so much giving. This is from my... Sorry. Nature is so much giving. You invest, you get worth for your work. But communities are difficult to be honest in low pressure activities and Oh, that's a research. I just love you, Mayor. You're right. Cross you have to bear. What kind of cross do you have to bear? Chinese whisper. Hi. Welcome. And we'll talk about the cross later, but I don't bear any cross. Or I don't wear a cross. I don't look at a cross any differently than I look at anything else. I mean, Nibiru means crossing. I think the cross really came from the symbolism the Anunnakis used to wear. It's just my thoughts. All right, back to the great pasture here.
It says in verse 6, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, and who laid the cornerstone thereof? He's talking about the world. And he's trying, he's kind of rebuking Job, telling him all the things that he created, all the things that he did. And he's saying, if you can answer this, whereupon are the foundations of thereof, the earth, fastened? Where's the earth fixed? Where it is? Tell me where it is. Who laid the cornerstone, which is something you would do for something that's established, a cornerstone, a building. If Jesus is the cornerstone of our faith, that has to be something fixed. That has to be something immovable. That has to be something you build upon. If you're establishing a cornerstone of the earth, you have to build upon that. You have to have that established. And that is stationary, stuck, fixed. I'm going to prove to you that the earth is a flat surface. Go to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. So throughout the Bible, almost 40 times, the Bible will use the word face. They use the word face to describe the face of the earth, also the face of the sea. And anytime the word face is used in the Bible, it's actually talking about a flat surface. So if you're in Genesis chapter 1, look at verse 29, it says, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth. And every tree which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for me. So, upon the face of the earth, think of your own face. So even when it describes your own face, your face itself is flat in the same way that the earth is flat. It just has peaks and valleys and dips.
Okay, I hate to keep cutting him off, but Andy keeps getting my attention. I know Nibiru ain't nothing flat. I didn't say that. I said the word Nibiru means crossing. Talking about a year ago, I used to look at it like Nibiru and Earth crossing paths, causing destruction. That's what I was talking about. I know it's not flat. I personally think Nibiru is a planet, a craft planet. I think it's where the Anunnakis live. And I think they do come around every 3,600 years to collect gold from here, from Earth. Just saying. I'm crazy later.
Flat. You wouldn't call your head flat. You would call your head a sphere. You would call your head something that is circular, round, something that is a sphere. But you could consider your face as the earth, in the sense that if you have a circular type face, it would be a circle. But it would also be a face in the sense that it's flat with just peaks and valleys, like mountains, dips in the sea, everything. It's still flat. And the face of the land, the face of the sea, whenever God is using to describe that, it's talking about a flat surface. And I want you to turn to number 7 in your packet. If you look in your packet, we're going to look at picture number 7. So these are 4 different pictures. And it's spanning over the course of almost 10 or 15 miles, you can see here. So this is at sea level, and there's a reason it's called sea level, because it's level. The sea is not curving. It's level completely throughout the world. So this is at sea level. You see that the horizon is flat. And then you go up a little more. This is at ground level. The horizon, you see the horizon is flat. And then you go over here. This is a different part on the ground also, a different part of the world. You see how it's flat. And then the top picture is above the clouds, but you see how the horizon is also flat. Why is it flat? As no matter where you go, no matter how high you go up on the earth, and you can find these videos online. I'm going to make a documentary about this sermon, these two sermons, and I'm going to show you video. But why is it flat as you go higher and higher and higher? It's because the earth is a flat surface. So the horizon will rise with you, and it will remain flat. No matter what field of view you are seeing, because remind you, we talked about how all the converging lines of your vision going down a hallway. So the ground continues to look flat when it is flat, and all the reason that the horizon will raise with you is because the way that you're looking, you're continually just looking farther and farther distance away, but it's always flat because it's a flat surface. If the earth was curved, the higher you got, the more curvature you would see, because you're getting more and more farther away from a flat surface. So when you're just...
And do you know what I do here in Atlanta? Welcome, is that lunch here? Lunch? Welcome. Here in Atlanta, I have often, well, not often, I'd say I've done it about 5 or 6 times, taken some friends up to the Peachtree Plaza that we have down here. You ride that elevator because it's on the outside. You can actually see Atlanta, and you ride it all the way to the top. And then I've done it. Depends on how long you've known me, and if you know what kind of character I am, whether you knew what I was doing or not. But there was 3 times where people already knew. They're like, China, damn it, you're trying to prove something. I'm like, yep, watch the horizon follow you all the way up. You will not have to bow your head. You will not have to look down. The horizon's going to stay with you the entire way. Yeah, it changed a couple of minds. All right, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
Just looking in front of you, everything looks flat, and you shouldn't see that much curvature if you want a curved earth, yes. But as you get higher, or as you look farther, and as you look broader, like if you ever look at the sea, you should see curvature. You should begin to see that. Mm-hmm. And especially when you get into higher buildings, like you don't have to go flying to see this. Just go up to a 100-story building. Go up to an 80-story building, a 40-story building, and look out at the horizon. Mm-hmm. It's going to remain flat to you because the rest of the earth is flat, and it's rising with your vision. It would curve. The higher you got, it would be even more curved. It would curve even exponentially the higher you got, because you could see farther distances. And the farther distance you can see, the more the earth curves, 8 inches per mile square, remind you. So the farther you can see, the more it should curve. But as you can see by these pictures, and as you should do next time you're in a tall building, just look outside. The horizon will always remain flat no matter what level you're at, because the earth is flat. Turn to Numbers chapter 22. Numbers chapter 22. So remember how I described how your face was flat and how any time
he's not talking too much, Andy. You're not listening.
Face, whether it be talking about the sea or the land, is describing a flat surface. Look at Numbers chapter 22 and verse 31. It says, "Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and the sword drawing in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face." If your face wasn't flat, he wouldn't say flat on your face, because the Bible is very literal. So he did fall flat on his face, whether he hit his nose first or not. It's still a flat surface. Whenever the Bible is talking about the face of the water, the face of the land, the face of everything, it's talking about face because it is flat. As you continue on, turn to Genesis chapter 7. Genesis 7, verse 23. Genesis chapter 7, verse 23. So if you look in Genesis 7 and verse 23, it says, "Every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground." So it's talking about everything in the earth, right? Every living substance was on the face of the ground. So it's talking about a flat surface and every living substance being on the face of it. Right. Both man and cattle and creeping thing and the fowl of heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. Turn to Genesis chapter 1. Actually, on some...
Excuse me. You just made me think of something there. Atlantic to the sea would give a 5-degree curve down. that just takes me way, way, way back to the beaches. Anyway, my son, one of my sons, took his first flight. He's 23. Took his first flight. He flew up north. He was on the plane for maybe 2.5 hours due to some kind of delays. Anyway, the first thing he said to me was, "Mom, I saw curvature. I saw it with my own eyes in a plane. Mom, I saw it." And I just let him talk, let him vent. And then I just simply said to him, "Elliot, what were the shape of the windows you were looking out of? Were they bowed?" Every window is bowed like a fisheye lens, so you can see exactly just that, a curvature, because the fisheye lens or the fisheye window is curved. Perception. Everything is about perception. Even though you're looking out a window, I can't say I know, but I know of plenty of pilots who are releasing videos now of flat Earth, and they are recording from the pilot, from the seat, looking out their window where that's no curvature. So not even if you get into a plane, you can't say, "I saw a curvature." No, you didn't. Besides, all of us that have been in the oceans, or I've never been outside of America, but has anyone ever said you should have felt that curve, felt that gravity just pull us on over the curve, or whatever situation of the world that they're on? If anyone has experienced going over the curve, you think that we would be talking about it. The feeling. You know how when you're at Six Flags, well, we have Six Flags here, but if you're on any kind of ride, and what do you call them, the roller coasters, once you go down, immediately your stomach drops. Or even in elevators, your stomach just drops and you can just feel it. How many people in the world are actually saying, "Man, you have got to go da-da-da-da-da"? That's where the curve is. That's when you can feel that sensation of your stomach dropping. No one talks about that because no one's ever experienced it. It just doesn't happen like that. Like people in China are walking upside down.
Sorry, stay in Genesis 7. Genesis 7, look in verse 18. It says, "The waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters." So the waters are increasing. Remember when there was a flood, and we're going to get into the ends of the earth and what I believe is holding the earth in. When the waters are increasing and everything is getting drowned and everybody is dying, there is talking about the face of the waters, a level face plane. That's how that works. When the heavens are open and a flood is coming down and the earth is being flooded up, that's how that works. It doesn't work on a globe. If you're spinning and you have these massive floods, the water is going to be pulled to and which way. The moon's going to be pulling the shore back and forth. You're going to have all these gravity factors coming in, and it just doesn't work when a ball is spinning. That all the water can stay on a ball, yet other things don't have to be forced down by that water. That gravity should be so intense to hold the water in that it should be able to hold you to the ground. It should be able to hold birds to the ground. Helium should not be able to rise in a helium balloon. And the only reason that helium can rise in a helium balloon is because helium is less dense than air. So if you fill up a balloon which has weight and is more dense than air, it'll fall, and it has nothing in it, it'll fall to the ground. But you put enough helium in it, it spans out that balloon, makes the density of that balloon less and less as you fill it, and then at a certain point, it will start floating. But if you let out enough helium from that balloon, and the weight of the balloon matches with the helium in there, and that density matches, you'll have a balloon at equilibrium. You ever seen a balloon that is just sitting right there, that's just sitting in space? The reason for that is because of density, not gravity. So the density of inside the balloon, the density of helium is a lot less than air. it counteracted with the weight of that balloon that it matched the air perfectly. That's why it's equilibrium. That's why that balloon is not going up or down, because the density of the balloon plus the helium match the density of the air. So it's not going up or down, it's just staying perfectly at equilibrium. That doesn't work on gravity. It should be pulling it down no matter what.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much it weighs. And then turn to Zechariah chapter 9. Let's go over the ends of the earth. The ends of the earth. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2 says, the earth was without form and void, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So it's, again, talking about a level plane. You're in Zechariah chapter 9, look in verse 10. So the Lord has established ends to the earth. And I'm going to just describe to you what these ends are, and I believe them to be ice walls that surround the earth, also known as Antarctica. So remember, when we're talking about this flat earth model, on the globe, Antarctica on the globe is at the bottom, right? So when you think of a globe, you think of Antarctica at the bottom. But when you think of a flat earth model, remember, the north is the top. And if you squish the globe, the north would be at the center, right?
There are more trees than humans.
What does Antarctica become? It becomes...
Did you really just say there are more trees than humans? Of course there are. We breathe a whole lot of oxygen on this flat plane.
The ends. All the way around, 360 degrees. So their globe model is actually false. They make it seem like a continent. But what it really is it's the ends of the earth. And the reason that those ice walls, those ice shelves are so high, because they're holding in them. They're holding in the waters. They're holding in everything. And God has established it. Look at Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 10. It says, and I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off. And he shall speak peace unto the heathen, and his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. So God has established ends to our earth. It's not just a continuing full-on globe where there's no end. You can literally, if it's a globe, you can go from one point around in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. You can do that here on a flat earth model if you're going around the North Pole. So you can do that. But if you just fly straight, if you're not, turning, you'll hit the end of the earth. Because there are ends. And we're going to go over a lot of verses that talk about this. But this is just one. It says from the river even to...
Okay, and yes, Admiral Byrd. How many of you are familiar with Admiral Byrd? Got to be, if you're a flat earther, you know about Byrd. Several of his airplanes crashed into an invisible wall. Well, they thought it was invisible. But basically hit the dome. Yeah. And I was about to say, people shouldn't guess what is out there beyond Antarctica. I believe it's another dimension. The Bible does claim there is an end. I guess, yeah, it does. He's telling you all the verses. You can write them down if you need to, but the Bible clearly states that this is a flat plane. But back where you said people shouldn't guess what is out there beyond Antarctica. I don't think it's a point of guessing anymore. I think that there's a firmament, a dome over us for a reason.
You're hungry, you come home and eat.
My question is where does the firmament stop? Is it at the ice wall? Or is it beyond the ice wall? Is there, if you go beyond the ice wall, is there another dimension? Is this where the giants, the Nephilims are? There's so many questions that I have. This is why I do what I do, I guess. I don't trust anything from Byrd, government control. Well, he wasn't in the government, though. He was in the military. And from what he said on the old footage that I've seen, maybe I need to go over that too. He worded things to me as a flat earther. He worded things in such a form that people would understand what he was saying. Basically, he was saying there are other things out there beyond that. and I'm sure they edited it. I'm sure they cut out so much. But at least you know who he is. Great comment, by the way.
The end of the earth. Turn to Job chapter 26. Maria?
Hold on, one more time. Mayor, like the Bermuda Triangle stories. I think the Bermuda Triangle has a lot to do with magnets, electric. I don't know how many of you know of FPV. I think Jamie may know it. I'll leave a link in the description after this is over. But just like crop circles, no, I no longer believe that crop circles are made from aliens and orbs and such. Yeah, I believe it comes from underground. I believe it has everything to do with electricity. Where was I going with that? I forgot. Yeah, everything we know is a lie, but yet the truth is the hardest thing to believe. Is that a catch-22 or what? How runs the military and the government?
What do you have?
You mean who runs the military and the government? The elite, of course. Yeah, electricity. I think everything is electricity. We're all electric. I know what you meant, Andy. But yes, it's the elite run everything.
No.
They always have. They always will. And if you want me to go there, I will. I believe they're all reptilians. I believe in other beings. How about that? Whether they got tails and claws, I do believe in shapeshifters. That's a whole different show though, right? All right, I'm hitting play now.
Job chapter 26, verse 10. It says, he had compassed the waters with bounds. Job 26, verse 10, it says, he hath compassed the waters with bounds until the day and the night come to an end. You see that? Bounds. He has compassed. Remember when we talked about in the first sermon that a compass is describing a circle? A compass is describing a curved surface. He has compassed the waters with bounds until the day and night come to an end. So those bounds are there. Those bounds are established. Now I want you to open up your packet, and I'm going to show you why we don't know that much about these bounds. Look at number 8 in your packet. It's going to be a page from Wikipedia. Number 8 in your packet looks like this. It's a page from Wikipedia, and it says Antarctic Treaty System. See that? Antarctic Treaty System. So you're in page number 8. Look what it says. I'm going to read just the first sentence. It says, the Antarctic Treaty and related agreements, collectively known as the Antarctic Treaty System, regulate the international relations with respect to Antarctica, Earth's only continent without a native human population. If we're on the Earth and there's just one continent on the bottom, you think we're not going to go to it? You think we're not going to just jump on it and just inhabit it? We're on the Earth. People want to find the bounds of the Earth. They desire to inhabit certain places. But you can't inhabit something that's just an ice wall. I'm not saying that the ice wall doesn't continue out, because it does. But the reason that this treaty was established, look in the next sentence. It says, for the purpose of the treaty system, Antarctica is defined as the land, as all of the land and ice shelves south of 60-degree latitude. The treaty entered into force in 1961 and has 53 parties. 53 countries have agreed to never inhabit Antarctica. Never inhabit Antarctica. And what's their purpose? Let's look. It says the treaty sets aside Antarctica as a scientific preserve. What is in Antarctica that needs to be preserved? Like, what are you preserving? The ice? we gotta keep this ice here just in case, we have global warming. We're gonna save this one place. We're gonna go get our ice from this place. And then it says, a scientific preserve establishes freedom of scientific investigation and bans military activity, except for the U.S., who has all of their military there and protects it with fighter jets. If you go to Antarctica, it's like you flew over the Pentagon. I'm serious. If there's a place, if you just fly to Antarctica, you just don't let anybody know, you're just I'm going to fly to Antarctica, they'll shoot you down. Or they'll race you down if you don't stop. Because you're going to figure out that there's an end of the Earth. You'll figure that out. They don't want us to know that. And then it says, it says bans military activity. Then it says the treaty was the first arms control agreement established during the Cold War. What else happened during the Cold War was when they were blowing up the fishbowl. Remember, Operation Fishbowl. It was all happening at the same time. They're coming together during this time. Since September 2004, the Antarctic Treaty Secretariat headquarters have been located in Argentina. And then it says the next paragraph, the treaty was opened for signature in 1959, officially entered into force in 1961. The original signatories were the 12 countries active in Antarctica, the International Geocentrical Year, in 1957. And it says the 12 countries that had significant interest in Antarctica were Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, the Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and the United States. Those countries knew that Antarctica was an ice wall. They established this treaty to not let the information get out. And now, if you read the last sentence, these countries had established over 50 Antarctic stations for the IGY. The treaty was diplomatic expression of the operational and scientific cooperation of many nations that had been achieved on the ice. So the reason for this Antarctic treaty system is so that the information never gets out that there's an end to the Earth. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to realize that Antarctica is not a continent to be inhabited. They want you to think that Antarctica is just some scientific region where we're just doing a lot of studies. We're just finding out how cold it can get here. Right. Let's just figure that out first. No, what they don't want you to see the end. They don't want you to see that the world has ends. And I want you to turn to one more thing. Look at page number 9. Page number 9. These are pictures, and you can actually do research on other people who have traveled by sea. Like, I'm talking before this military ban, where they just say, I traveled around the Earth and I could not get past the ice wall. There's papers of people that were actually, trying to find other land, trying to go out and explore in the 1800s and 1600s. And they literally said that they just came to an ice wall where they literally just had to travel around the whole Earth in an ice wall. And you can read their firsthand accounts of all this happening. And there's people who have tried to fly to Antarctica and they were taken down by the military. All this information is available to you. But look at number 9. These are the ice walls that are encasing the Earth. Those don't look too small, do they?
Heck no.
Why don't you fall off the edge? It's because of these giant ice walls that God has established, which he says in Job chapter 26, verse 10, he hath come.
I said that to my daughter one time. She says, well, Mom, how come you don't fall off the edge? That's like the number one question that Glover's asked. How come you don't fall off the edge? And I'm asking, well, how come we're not flying off the Earth? But I said, because of the damn ice wall. And, that goes into a whole different story. Sorry.
The water with bounds until the day and night come to an end. So until day and night are over, these bounds are staying. These bounds are established.
All right, one more time and I'm going to stop. Good times for all. I see you like the sky and clouds. Have you ever tried manipulating them? Have you been through my channel? I manipulate them all the time. Lately, I've been doing it for subscribers that have been sending me photos, and I will manipulate them as far as contrast and lightning and filters and things. Yes, I manipulate them all the time, and I see what's going on. Good question, though. Great question, actually.
I want you to turn to Acts chapter 17. Acts chapter 17. Acts chapter 17, we're going to look at verse 26. And this is a verse we use to kind of get rid of racism, because it says, and hath made of one blood all nations of men. Right? So we're all of one blood. But we don't look at the end of this verse. And it says in Acts 17, verse 26, all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. So God knows our bounds. He has established it. We're all of one blood. We're all together. You know, we're all from the same gene pool, and he knows our bounds. He has set our bounds about. Turn to Job chapter 38. Job chapter 38. You know, if this theory, some people call it, the reason the title of my sermon was the flat earth and not the flat earth theory was because I don't believe it to be a theory. A theory is something you can't prove. And if this theory wasn't true, would I be able to find this much scripture on it? 2 sermons worth of scripture, 12 pages. Turn to Job chapter 38, verse 8. Who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as it issued out of a womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, so the cloud is the covering of the seas, and the thick darkness a swaddling band for it, so the thick darkness above the clouds, a swaddling band for it, and break up it for a decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. He's talking about the sea. Hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. And here shall thy proud waves be stayed. The bars and doors, the ends of the earth. What's holding in the sea is the bars and doors. And he said, thy proud waves will be stayed. So nothing, no water is breaking through these bars. No water is breaking through Antarctica or the ice wall that God has created to bound the earth, to bind it together. Turn to Psalm 103. Psalm 103. I'm going to read a verse from Job chapter 28 and verse 24. It says, he looketh to the ends of the earth and seeth under the whole heaven. Job 28:24 says, he looketh to the ends of the earth and seeth under the whole heaven. So if you got the firmament on top, he can obviously see the ends of the earth, and he sees under, remember the firmament is heaven, under the whole heaven. It's all right there in his vision. He's seeing all of it. And then you're in Psalm 103, look in verse 11. It says, for as the heaven is high above the earth, so great...
Okay, I gotta come off. I'm back in the chat. Bye, Jason. I love you. You can listen to it later after work. I'm gonna go live again in a couple of hours, actually. But let's see. Good Times for All is dissolving this cloud with your mind. I have a video of it on here, YouTube Mind Blowing Experience. I did watch a couple of videos. I don't know whose channel I was watching. But there was a guy, he was praying to the clouds. It was a chemtrail, actually, and he was praying that it would go away. And he prayed and he prayed and he prayed for like 10 minutes, and it did go away. And he also prayed for them to appear and grow, and they did as well. Now, my belief in that is I believe that certain individuals have certain powers to do certain things. I'm not saying that dude was actually doing that correctly, or if it, I don't believe in coincidences. So, but overall, is that good or is that bad that a person could even do that? I mean, the power of prayer is enormous. But if you're just praying for a cloud to, or a chemtrail to dissolve or and such, I don't know who's doing that. I don't know if that's good or evil. So, but you got me thinking there. I like this chat tonight or this morning. You guys have really got me thinking outside of my invisible box. All right. Love you, Jason. Have a good day at work.
Is his mercy toward them that fear him. So remember, as the heaven, in Genesis 1 verse 8, it says, the firmament is heaven. He called the firmament heaven. So as the heaven is high above the earth, so the firmament at the center is the highest point. Because remember, it's like a dome, a glass dome. As high it is above the earth, so great is his mercy towards them that fear him. And as far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgression from us. So, mind you, there's two ways to look at this. God could establish a north, south, east, and west in the sense that he could make not north the center, but make north like over here and west over here and east over here and south over here. So that's a very long distance. Or if you look at it, the flat earth model with the disk, because the disk has magnetism, which is how we describe the sun rotating at different paths around the center. If this is the north, in the same way that you could think of it, I guess, with the globe, but if this is the north, and the east and the west are relative to the north, the east and the west are pretty much infinite, right? Because you're going from, if you're always traveling to the right in a circle, you're always traveling east, if you're looking at it that way. And if you're traveling this way, you're always traveling west in a circle around the north. Because remember, the north is the center, and we're talking about circles east to west. But also, if God's thinking that if God's way is that the north is up here and east and west and south are here, at least that's a very far distance. Like, we know that for sure. So, but in the flat earth model, the north is the center because it helps with understanding magnetism, because the north pole is the center. That's why when your compass points north, it's pointing towards the center of the disc. So when a disc has magnetism, you think of north and south of the magnetism. The north is the center point of the disc, and then as you get farther out to the very outer spaces, the very outer ends, it's south. And that's how seasons work on a flat Earth, because
there's no
you have the
South
sun and
Pole,
the
by the
moon,
way,
right?
people.
And they're always traveling at different distances from the north, but they're compassing in a full 24-hour period. So, if you live in this area, when it's summer for you, the sun is going to be very close. But when it's winter, it's getting farther and farther away. And if you live in this area, around the equator, that's why the equator is always so hot, is because the sun will be around the equator the most.
Yes.
If it's starting here and going out farther, and then eventually coming back in, it hits the equator twice, right? As it goes out and as it comes in. That's why the equator is usually the hottest point. That works on the flat Earth model, because you have the sun coming in here for a season, coming out there for a season, then coming back in till it's summer. And that's how the equator works. And then where I tell you to turn, you're in, turn to Isaiah chapter 44. Isaiah chapter 44, look in verse 24. Isaiah 44, look in verse 24. And in verse 24, the Bible reads, "Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, he that formed thee from the womb, I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, which spreadeth them abroad the earth, I myself." Abroad the earth. He's stretching the heavens above the earth.
Yes.
And when you stretch something abroad, you're usually stretching it across a flat surface. You're spreading something abroad over a bed. The same concept is here. He's over the, and we're just going over a couple more verses. My 10. When he uttereth his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens, the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth.
And at this point of the video, I do not know quite what happened. Just kind of lost it.
Pictures of suns. You might have a picture of one sun. And what you're seeing here is the sun with clouds in front of it, but also clouds behind it. You see those clouds behind the sun? And you should see that in your packet also. You should see clouds behind the sun.
Sorry, guys.
You see these clouds behind the sun? Do you know
so
why that
love and
is?
light to
It's because
everybody.
the sun is rotating around the...
Thank you so much for watching. Again, this is on my backup channel. I will leave a link in the description. I will leave a link in the description for the video as well. And hope to see you soon right here on my backup channel. Just Me China. Love and light. Take care. Thanks for watching, guys.